Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, my name is Mr. Doggo, and welcome back to the new campaign trail. Now, last time we joined each other, we hopped into SpongeBob 2008, which was a very, very silly mod. We played as Mr. SpongeBob SquarePants, and we did some mischief. We won in a pretty big landslide against Squidward Tentacles and Patrick Star, who ran a very formidable but ultimately futile third-party campaign and got the Democrats into 4 years of power after the George Bush administration. We're playing a much different mod at this point. This is Midnight 1964. It's been out for a while, but it's a very, very cool mod, and I did want to give it some love. We did reach like goal for the SpongeBob video, but just before I started recording, like literally just now. Our dear friend Kev didn't like the video before. You could actually play a social Squidward game in that mod, Kev. But he gave us the 5th like for the like goal, so we'll go back to that mod eventually. But I want to do something a bit more serious, and I did want to play New Campaign Midnight 1964, especially before 68 comes out. So here we are, Midnight 1964. On November 22nd, 1963, while on a parade in Dallas, Texas, President John Fitzgerald Kennedy was assassinated by Lee Harvey Oswald. The American people, distraught over the loss of a young, charismatic, and inspiring leader, still hasn't fully recovered. Beyond that horrible tragedy, the state of the nation is a mixed bag. Under the new president's leadership, the economy is on the rise, but racial turmoil continues to be an issue, and the direction of the nation's foreign policy remains unclear. Goldwater must hope to reunite his party while maintain control of his conservative base, while Johnson must keep hold of his base by emphasizing his record and extremism of his opponents. So we got Barry Goldwater versus LBJ. At first, this is going to seem like a typical 1964 election mod, but it's way better than the actual 1964 mod. Not going to lie, that one's kind of shit. But this is going to take some twists and turns. Barry Morris Goldwater, the senator from Arizona, incumbent senator, having served for more than 10 years in office. Ever since the release of his book, The Conscience of Conservative, in 1960, he's a household name, known for being a staunch conservative in constitutional constructions. In the Republican primary, Goldwater faced off against familiar faces like Nelson Rockefeller, Henry Cabot Lodge Jr., William Scranton, and Margaret Chase Smith. After winning the nomination, he now stands as the conservative face of the Republican Party, but not everyone is happy about it. Going into the general election, Goldwater is more than 30 points behind his opponent in the polls. He wants to have a hope in hell of winning this thing. He needs to shake things up fast, lest he doom his beloved conservative ideology to the dark abyss of unelectability. So there are two ways that we can approach this to win. I actually want to do both in this video. But we're going to start with what's called the canon path, because this is a prequel to what's going to be Midnight 1968, which is a mod where it's between Nelson Rockefeller, it's George McGovern, and then George Lincoln Rockwell, who was, for those of you who don't know, a major movement in what was the American neo-Nazi movement. I don't know if that was exact, but it was something like that. So we're going to try to go for the canon path for that, and then we're going to go for the alternate Goldwater path. There's also some cool LBJ stuff that we could do potentially, but we won't have time for that for this video. But if you guys do want to see the LBJ path for this, can we get 5 likes on this video? I don't usually do like goals, but I've started doing more for the new campaign trail stuff. And so, yeah, let me know. And we can also change the banner. That is cool. I do like the different banners we can get. But we'll go ahead and do this. We'll go and continue, and we have only one vice president in office. Rockwell's also part of a cabinet of Joe Pelly, AOS, and Kaiserreich. Oh, dear. I'm not surprised about that, but So here's our VP. It's the only VP pick we have. William E. Miller. William Edgar Miller, incumbent member of the House of Reps, former chairman of the National Republican Congressional Committee, and the current chairman of the RNC. Behind the scenes, he supported you in your quest for the nomination, and many feel that he deserves a place on the ticket. A staunch conservative, Miller is similar to you in that regard, but his New York location and Catholic faith could help balance the ticket, though not by much. Some in your campaign feel his selection could send a message to moderate votes that you don't have any interest in appealing to them. While others relished in the thought of the sheer turnout he could bring among the base, but would that be enough to hand you the presidency? He has some unpopular positions on Social Security, among other government programs, is relatively unknown on a national level. But hey, he drives Johnson nuts, and if that's not enough, what is? So this is winner take all. Let's go ahead and check out the map as it is. For those of you who don't know, 1964 was one of the biggest landslide elections in U.S. history. Barry Goldwater won these 5 states in the Solid South, and his home state of Arizona. He barely won Arizona. Lyndon Johnson won literally every other state. Some states have never voted for a Democrat since. Idaho, though, Johnson barely won Idaho. Utah, which hasn't voted for a Democrat ever. It was the only time a Democrat has won Alaska, I believe. Feels kind of dirty standing against Jumbo. Well, it's going to get interesting, let me tell you, Kev. Barry Goldwater is an interesting figure to me, personally. But we'll probably get to that as we go along. With President Eisenhower disavowing the Stop Goldwater movement, it's fallen short, much to the charging of liberals like Rockefeller and Lodge. After winning the Republican nomination on the first ballot, you're introduced to the convention by Richard Nixon, and then it's finally time for your long-awaited acceptance speech. What will its core message be? To my good friend Dick Nixon, to Mr. Morton, to that great American General Eisenhower, I accept your nomination with a deep sense of humility. I accept you the responsibility that goes with it, and I seek your continued help and your continued guidance. From this moment, united and determined, we will go forward together, dedicated to the ultimate and undeniable greatness of the whole man. Together, we will win. Your supporters immediately break into applause, but not with as much enthusiasm as you'd have hoped. However, Rockefeller seems to have leaned in, intrigued by your pivot. Mending fences with the liberal wing of the party will be critical of this fall, and you're well on your way to doing so. So that helps us. Not really at all, honestly. Barry Goldwater mainly got ratioed in this time because of his position towards civil rights. That was the big thing. He was actually personally in favor of civil rights, but he voted against it because of the idea of states having, state overreach, because he was a very small government conservative. Usually when people say states' rights, it's because they didn't want the Civil Rights Act to pass, because it would give black people rights. But Barry Goldwater is kind of interesting that he's one of the few guys who brought up states' rights and actually did mean states' rights, as far as I can tell from what I've studied into him. Doesn't make the vote any better, but it makes it more interesting, I guess. In a somewhat interesting turn of events, you selected RNC chairman William Edward Miller as your VP running mate. He's mildly an offensive choice, as seen by his unanimous nomination, but he also has a virtually non-existent national profile. His acceptance speech, which he gave shortly before your own, was short and relatively well received. Still somewhat wary of your choice, and many more don't even know who he is. Do you have anything to say about your choice for president? Bill Miller has a history of fighting for freedom, justice, and the cause of liberty. Following his service in World War II, he served as prosecutor in the Nuremberg trials, personally ensuring that those godforsaken criminals would never enact their evil upon the world. Some question if such experience is really a good qualification for the job of VP, but no one's about to say so out loud, minimizing attacks on your running mate. There's this far-right politician from Virginia that starts lambasting you, but who even is that guy? Wasn't he also the antithesis of charisma? Also, dude was a goober dork. He kind of was, from my understanding. He's very much the Louis C.K. had a bit how there are nerds and there are cowboys in politics. Goldwater was very much a nerd. even though he kind of positioned himself as the Southwestern cowboy. And his movement didn't really go anywhere, at least initially. The conservative... Now the Republicans are the conservative party because of Reagan. Because Reagan was the cowboy who kind of pushed shit through. So we get to decide where we want to go next. Compared to LBJ, who was just a fucking walking ball of swagger. Not wrong. You're not wrong. Man literally sexually harassed his way to getting a bunch of bills passed. It's fascinating. Let's visit Pennsylvania. By some more than others, your acceptance speech was generally well received. However, many have taken note of one specific phrase in which you mentioned that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice, and that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue. Liberal and moderate Republicans have taken this as both a direct insult as well as blanket approval of right-wing extremism. Do you intend on clarifying your controversial statements? Even I can admit that this was a poor choice of words. If I'm going to win, I'll need a united party. I like to write Governor Rockefeller a personal letter apologizing for the bluntness of my statement and emphasizing my commitment to party unity and, yes, to some moderation. Appreciative of your surprisingly kind and conciliatory letter, Rockefeller agrees not to turn your words into an intra-party issue. Johnson, on the other hand, has no such restrictions. In the upcoming campaign, Democrats are sure to accuse you of being a far-right radical. Well, let's address the elephant in the room, shall we? Earlier this year, your famous vote against Johnson's Civil Rights Act, yourself saying you can't legislate morality. Although you expected it to be a minor issue, this has devastated your numbers among minority voters, liberals, and even moderates, though you do enjoy unusually high support of South for a Republican candidate. Simply put, why did you vote against the act? Look, let me clarify something. Yes, I voted against the act because at the time I viewed it as unconstitutional. However, despite my vote, it passed with flying colors and has become a settled law. Now that it's up to the courts to decide constitutionality, as president, I would uphold the law. This is an interesting pivot, but it goes over fairly well. Moderates are tentatively pleased by your pledge to uphold the act, while your more conservative supporters think you're just saving face and are still as supportive as ever. Time will show them how serious you truly are. There we go. This is an important question. We're going to have to come back to this one. We're going to go back. We'll go to, I think, Pennsylvania. Mississippi is molding. They're still relatively supportive. When we go in the last ABRC, a 15-year-old African-American named James Powell was murdered by an off-duty police officer in NYC. What followed was 6 straight days of violent rioting. By the end, one was dead and almost 200 were injured, with over $1 million in property damage. In the aftermath of the chaos, you've enjoyed a bit of a rise in polls. Seeing as you were name-dropped by one of the protesters, many are curious about your opinion on the Harlem riots, as well as racial violence in general. I want to make something clear. If anyone attempts to sow racial violence on my political behalf, I will withdraw from the presidential race, even if it's the day before the election. Yes, we need good order, but I have no intention of exploiting the murder of innocent Americans. Some accuse you of doing the very same thing you say you're not, but to most you seem surprisingly caring and sensitive. Just pray your supporters, or your opponents for that matter, don't try anything unless you be called upon to fulfill your pledge. Despite the time that's passed since President JFK's tragic death still hangs in the air for many, if not all, Americans. His fateful visit to Dallas was in preparation for his re-election campaign, after all. Until then, it was widely assumed that you'd be running against him this year. Do you have any words to say about his passing, Senator? Despite the differences we had in politics, and how to best run our country, Jack and I were friends. Close friends. We served together in the Senate, and I actually look forward to the political discourse our competing campaigns would have sparked. I'm distraught he's gone. I'm terrified my opponent would do some shit and claim in my name to fuck me up. Yeah. I think one of the big shot endings if Goldwater loses in a landslide is, if you select that answer, is him actually doing that. Which is cool. For a man whose words tend to embellish his statements, this comes across as very honest and heartfelt. It's actually turned a few heads towards you. Beautiful. Yeah, it's really cool, actually. We'll head over to New Hampshire. Do a quick little visit there. Often considered the third rail of politics, the Social Security program is overwhelmingly popular with almost everyone other than staunch fiscal conservatives like yourself. Meanwhile, you've expressed your desire to turn into a voluntary system, a change which William Miller has said would unquestionably destroy the system. Miller's been attempting to cover for you, saying that your position has been misunderstood. Could you clarify your opinion on the program, Senator? Social Security helps to ensure that each and every hardworking American can have a comfortable retirement. I'm in favor of that, but some of the numbers just don't add up. And that doesn't mean we need to cut benefits. It just means that we need to take a look at things. A surprisingly honest and level-headed response. Sure, this stance is in and of itself generally unpopular, but it helps to moderate your controversial position without coming off as a flip-flop. To your fortune, the issue begins to fade away as the press moves on to other things. Last week, the USS Maddox and the USS Turner Joy were attacked in the Gulf of Tonkin by North Vietnamese forces. Two North Vietnamese torpedo boats were allegedly sunk in a second attack, though there is no wreckage. The day of that incident, President Johnson requested the permission of Congress to react with military force, which received unanimous support barring two senators, Morris of Oregon and Gruening of Alaska. Seeing as he would inherit the conflict if elected, can you clarify your position on the Vietnam conflict? I, like the rest of my party, support the President's actions here, as shown by my vote in favor of the Gulf of Tonkin resolution. President Johnson and I have our differences, but what's important here is that we all, Republican or Democrat, come together in defense of this nation. Agreeing with Johnson? Who are you and what have you done with Barry Goldwater? Your statement comes as a shock to your supporters, but it is generally popular. People are still rallying around Johnson, but you've helped to make people see you in a more bipartisan light. Alright, major parties. I wonder how that would look too, honestly. I wonder how that would work. We'll go back to Pennsylvania. Seeing as you're the Republican Party's nomination, former President Dwight Eisenhower has been, as expected, supportive of your campaign. However, so far, such support has been extremely minimal, with Eisenhower only giving you the most bare minimum of endorsements following your nomination. This is most certainly due to your outspoken criticisms of his administration, yourself once calling him a dime store New Deal. Eisenhower remains an extremely popular figure, and many think you could benefit from mending fences with the former president. Do you have any intention of doing so? The best way to handle this is to meet Eisenhower face to face. I understand that we have a rocky relationship, but at the end of the day, we're all Republicans. Just like him, I support fiscal responsibility, a strong foreign policy, and a moderate social disposition. Eisenhower's a little annoyed that you keep badgering him about this, but he listens to your points, nodding along. By the end, he agrees to give you whatever you need, whether it be ads, statements of support, or anything in between. The next day, he delivers a full endorsement. More than a month after your own, the DNC New Jersey has just wrapped up with Johnson confirmed as the nominee, though this was never in doubt. However, there are some interesting points to go over. Most obvious being Johnson's selection of Senator Hubert Humphreys as running mate. There was also an interesting controversy with a group known as the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, challenging the legitimacy of their state's official delegation. Do you have any comments to make on your opponents in the aftermath of this spectacle? Lyndon Johnson's the biggest faker in the United States. For all the years of his life, he's been opposed to civil rights. Doesn't anyone remember his efforts against the Civil Rights Act of '57? And now the Mississippi hijinks. He's a phoniest individual to ever come around. Oh no, it doesn't sound racist at all. This is a scathing attack on Johnson's record, and it does help to highlight his unfortunate history regarding civil rights. Still, with Johnson's own Civil Rights Act fresh on the Congress floor, if he is a faker, he sure is committed to the act. Well, let's head over to New Hampshire. Along with the president, although the president currently enjoys high approval ratings, one scandal he's been unable to effectively dodge is his close relationship with Robert Baker, Democratic Party operative, who was discovered to have participated in numerous activities, including tax fraud, bribery, and general corruption. Baker and Johnson were close friends dating back to when the president was first elected senator. Second, slightly more minor scandal is Johnson's relationship with Billy Sol Estes, a Texan businessman who's been convicted of fraud. How do you plan to take advantage of these unfortunate scandals? I want to make something clear. Bobby Baker is Lyndon Johnson's man. Look at the records. Those two were the best of friends until things went up south. We need a complete investigation to the two's relationship. And let me tell you, we won't get it with the big man in charge. delivered a major speech on the scandal. It reverberates back across America, directly linked Johnson to Baker, and it's worked perfectly. Johnson's numbers take a dive, but with a massive lead he started out with, time will tell if it makes a difference. We're making it up in the plains a little bit. Florida, I think, is about to swap over. We got Arizona in our pocket, just about. But we're going to need something huge to make it out. In the aftermath of the Bobby Baker scandal, Democrats have begun hacking your own connections to various figures, particularly on the fact that you've been endorsed by both the John Birch Society, a far-right anti-communist association, as well as the KKK. Your opponent has gone as far as to release a full-length ad in which a man says that while he voted for Nixon and Eisenhower, he can't bring himself to vote for you. Huntington changed the narrative when it comes to these endorsements. I don't know about the Klan, but the John Birch Society is a good chunk of my base. Let's walk the tightrope on this one and have my campaign, not me, release a statement disavowing some conspiracy theories, but not the groups themselves. This is likely the best you can do. Your hardcore supporters, like the people in the John Birch Society, read in the papers about your campaign disavowing extremist ideas and dangerous theories and don't think much of it. Meanwhile, moderate voters, not along. It's kind of interesting. Well, from my understanding, Texan politics were just corrupt as fuck in general. And so, I think if you worked with the right people... Oh, goddamn it. Kept on ads. On the January 8th of this year, at his State of the Union address, President Johnson declared what he called an unconditional war on poverty. Since then, the president has supported a staunchly liberal economic platform which has been dubbed his Great Society, specifically he's passed the Economic Opportunities and the VISTA Acts, which both serve to provide government jobs to low-income Americans. While decried by conservatives, Johnson's platform is widely popular. What is your thoughts on it? I started explaining it. Let me catch up on this. This war on poverty is an effective hodgepodge of programs which try and fail to treat only the causes of poverty. Whatever its professed purposes, it seems designed to achieve the single objective of securing votes. I think Americans will see through such a scam. This is an interesting attack, and it certainly plays better than attacking the programs directly. Framing them as a scheme to grab votes won't hurt you, but on the balance, it does little to turn new heads. So, Texas politics was corrupt. You need to work with people to get anywhere. From my understanding, Bobby Baker and Billy Stolestis were the people you need to work with, and so they helped LBJ out with politics. That's my understanding of what that was, in a nutshell. 3 days ago, at a campaign stop in India, you spoke to a crowd about the American troop buildup in Vietnam and the chance of war. Things were going well until, for God knows why, you had to shut off that brain of yours and start talking about how there's a craven fear of death in America, and with it, an irrational phobia of nuclear weapons. We had to lob one of those in the men's room of the Kremlin. All the crowd could do was gasp. Can you explain yourself? I believe this was an actual gaffe that Goldwater said. But I fought in the only war ever to see the use of atomic weapons. I saw their power, and you know what? They sent millions of young men home. The decision to use them should not be made lightly. But I shudder to think about what would have happened if they never dropped the ball. With your somber and heartfelt statement on the minds of many, the so-called Daisy Girl ad, in which a little girl is shown picking petals before a sudden nuclear explosion, is viewed as tasteless and seen with a widespread negative reaction. It's quickly pulled from the air. Alright, well, we need something to get us ahead in this. 2 years ago, on the 25th of June 1962, the Supreme Court gave an extremely controversial decision on the case of Engel versus Vitale. Led by Chief Justice Earl Warren, the court ruled in favor of Stephen Engel, a decision which effectively outlawed in-school prayer. Conservatives were, and still are, forming at the mouth over this decision, while liberals and those supportive of staunch separation of church and state were overjoyed. In the aftermath of the nuclear weapons debacle, your advisors think this is a good issue to focus on and regain some support. Would you appoint justices who would overturn the decision? let's see. I'm trying to remember which one's the right one. Absolutely. This decision and the Warren Court as a whole are prime examples of corrosion that this country has experienced over the past few years. I mean, outlawing prayer in schools. What's next? Outlawing in your homes? Overturning this is one of my top priorities. You've taken a staunchly conservative position on the issue, but nevertheless it's popular. The court's decision came as a shock to most Americans, and many would be happy to see it overturned. So, we're winning a little bit, still behind in Idaho. Barely. But we just need something that'll change things. Following the assassination of President Kennedy, Johnson established, via executive order, a commission to investigate the tragedy. Headed by figures like Justice Warren, Congressman Ford, and Senator Russell, the aptly dubbed Warren Commission has finally released its findings. In an almost 900-page report, Americans have hyperfixated on a single, shocking line. This report cannot rule out the possibility that Mr. Oswald had help from within the executive administration. While vague, countless Americans have inferred it to mean that President Johnson, in one way or another, was involved in Kennedy's death. On a campaign stop in Ohio, a dozen reporters rush up to you, cameras flashing as they ask your opinion on the news. One reporter finally relays with you the story, and you're left stunned. After a moment, what do you say? Jack Kennedy was a good friend of mine. We served in the Senate together for 8 years, and to think his death was tragic enough, but to think that he was taken from us, from his friends, from his family for some sort of political purpose, I'm sorry. You need to excuse me. With the shedding of a single tear, millions of Americans begin to see you in a new light. The nation is pretty evenly split in regards to believing Johnson's innocence or guilt. But one thing's for certain. The course of American history has been changed forever. And there we go. It is a different race all of a sudden. I've heard so much shit about the Kennedy stuff. I'm not sure what's true and what's not. But what I do know, it's interesting, number one. But two, this race became a whole lot more competitive. We're going to go over to Missouri. See if we can't try to flip that. Earlier today, President Johnson held a press conference in which he ordered blanket denial of any involvement in the Kennedy assassination. At one point, he got heated out, blurting out, "I ordered the damn report. You think I would have done that if I killed him?" This conference ended soon after. Despite his denial, multiple members of the administration, including Attorney General Nicholas Katzenbach, have resigned from their positions, citing concerns over integrity. Furthermore, there have even been calls for Johnson to resign and for Humphrey to head a new ticket. Any comments? I do think the president should resign. Regardless of his guilt or innocence, the entire affair has eroded the people's trust. The American people deserve to have faith in their leadership. If he's truly the leader he claims to be, he should lead by example. And that means stepping down. Your call for Johnson's resignation has drawn further attention to the idea, forcing a response from Johnson, who steadfastly rejects it. Ironically, this has only brought more attention to the issue. You'll love to see it. We're close to flipping Ohio, getting closer to Missouri. Nevada, I think, will turn by itself. Most curious about New Hampshire, I think. We'll wait and see what happens there. Recently, President Johnson has been claiming that Robert Kennedy, younger brother to the late president, was a candidate for the Democratic nomination, was responsible for the results of the Warren Commission, alleging he was a goddamn attorney general, and by God, he hated me. What else do you need? Yesterday, Kennedy was asked by reporters if he believed Johnson's guilt or innocence, to which he responded that he wasn't particularly supportive of the president, and that Johnson's claims were completely baseless. Do you have a plan to exploit this feud? The Kennedys are furious. The nation is furious. Damn it, I'm furious. I've had my share of gaffes, but you're about to hear the best speech I've ever given, because every word will be straight from the heart. Johnson's words are despicable, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows it. True to your word, you give one of your most impassioned speeches of your career, demolishing Johnson for his lack of tact and respect. While this could have backfired, many are moved by your words, with even Ted Kennedy commending you for defending the legacy of his brother. I think the play is Missouri. President Johnson, who previously ignored your calls for debate, has finally agreed to one, citing his desire to clear his name to the American people. Of course, you were quick to accept, with yourself and the president now on the same stage, standing behind two podiums, just as Jack Kennedy and Dick Nixon did 4 years ago. As the debate's moderator, Walter Cronkite, finishes introductions, he asks for your opening statement. With the eyes of millions on you, what do you say? Prior to his tragic death, when it was thought President Kennedy and I would be the major players in this race, we discussed how we thought the debates might check out. We agreed that a debate this crucial should focus on the issues, first and foremost. My opponent might have other intentions, but I will not let the political drama of the last few weeks infringe upon the value this platform offers to the undecided voter. At first smug when you agreed to appear, the mention of Kennedy quickly soured the president's mood. Furthermore, with your avoidance of the topic, Johnson had to try and steer the conversation towards the Warren report to defend his honor, which ultimately made him look worse. Oh man, we're doing well. We really are. In the aftermath of all of this, your numbers have skyrocketed, or miraculously, Johnson's have plummeted. This race, which is once considered a sewn-up landmine, has become incredibly close, with the Goldwater victory surprisingly feasible. As such, donations to your campaign have spiked, and your once dwindling coffers are now filled to the brim. Your advisors have suggested use money on the new Blitz ads. What will the focus be? More than anything, it's imperative that we take complete and total advantage of the recent news. I want to shift our entire focus towards the Johnson administration's utter incompetence and unconscionable corruption. I'm not letting him off the hook. Not this time. Graft, swindle, treason. With striking words, your ads cut deep into Johnson's negatives. There's some talk of you politicizing the Warren report, which you clearly are, but not many care, with the majority of the public being, as expected, against the president. We'd win in Pennsylvania if it was held today. I want to see if we can go over to New Hampshire. Last week, news broke that Walter Jenkins, a top political aide of President Johnson, has been arrested along with another man under charges of disorderly conduct in a YMCA bathroom. Furthermore, it's come to light that Jenkins was previously arrested on the same charge 5 years ago, in that very same bathroom. Yesterday, Jenkins submitted his resignation, which the president reluctantly accepted. Your advisors think turning the affair into a major issue could help you propel your candidacy to victory, now that you actually have a chance of achieving one. Do you wish to do so? What kind of operation are they running in there? Between Bobby Baker, Billy Stolestis, this Jenkins fellow, and of course the whole Warren thing, Johnson is shaping up to be the most corrupt and immoral administration we've had since Grant. We've got to get him out of there. Tying in Johnson's numerous other scandals, especially the Warren report, helps to make your statement into a blistering attack against the president. The scandal surrounding Jenkins is a truly bizarre one, and Johnson's numbers are suffering in the aftermath. Jurgen Jenkins. He's a little homophobia during Pride Month. A little fucked up, but, you know, we gotta do what we gotta do to save America. We would win. We would win, boys. Holy shit. In an unexpected turn of events, the leader of the Soviet Union, Nikita Khrushchev, has resigned, citing ill health, with Leonid Brezhnev being voted in his replacement on the same day. On the surface, this is a peaceful transition to power, but to most, it's an obvious coup by Brezhnev and his supporters. Considering the prevalence of Khrushchev in a number of your ads, this has slightly damaged your campaign, which could make the difference. With how close things have gotten, in light of this news, how do you intend on making any alterations to your campaign? Do you know Sweden weaponized homophobia to deter Russian submarines in 20... What? You gotta explain. You can't just say that, not. Anyway, I'd like to call attention to two headlines. Kremlin shifts hard... Excuse me. I need to take a sip of water. Kremlin shift hints harder line, and Brezhnev hints at approved links with Peking. These tell a story which seems to contradict the president's. The communists are getting stronger, not weaker, and it's imperative we reverse that course. Sino-Soviet relations are indeed repairing following the coup, and hammering on that makes you appear like a sort of prophet when, 2 days later, Red China successfully tests their first nuclear weapons. By the end of things, it looks like you've made gains in the polls. Oh, would you look at that? Would you look at that? Whew! We could win in New Hampshire. Let's try that. Over the past few years, California actor Ronald Reagan has begun his journey in the political scene as a conservative Republican. As such, he's been a committed supporter of you and has, alongside other characters such as John Wayne, started multiple ads for you over the course of your campaign. Recently, he's been going around the country, giving a speech to various audiences. Your campaign has purchased a 30-minute spot on NBC to narrate a speech on national television, but some of your advisors think it could backfire. After watching the speech with him, what do you plan to do? What the hell's wrong with that? I gotta say, you people are word overload of nothing. We gotta air this anytime we can. I gotta call Ronald immediately and let him know that he's good to go. Jesus, think if I listened to you people without watching this for myself. Advisors have been embarrassed, as he called Reagan, telling him he's set to give the speech. Still, he's on edge, worried they might damage your numbers in these last few days. However, he goes through with it, and when the recording airs, it's met with widespread popularity. There we go. Perhaps the most tumultuous and chaotic election in American history is finally nearing its fateful end. Emotions are at an all-time high, and millions of devastated, heartbroken, and otherwise disillusioned Americans simply want a strong voice to guide them back to a sense of normalcy. As such, your campaign has organized an opportunity for you to give a final speech, one which will be heard throughout the nation. What will its general message be? The most important goal that we have as Americans, regardless of party, even ideology, is to vote out the incumbent president. For this entire campaign, and for my entire political career, I've been against all forms of corruption in government. And let me tell you, Lyndon Johnson is the most corrupt man we've got. He's a fraud, a phony, a crook, and most importantly of all, a murderer. In your heart, you know I'm right. Johnson's armor buckle under the weight of your striking speech. Every day, more and more Americans begin to believe the accusations against him. Not all of them are switching to you, however, with pundits predicting record low turnout. Let's hope it's enough. We're actually close in Delaware. I think if we gave more attention to Delaware, we could have won it. I'm not a crook. Lyndon Bates Johnson. Well, here we are. After possibly the most shocking and heartbreaking campaign in American history, we're just a few more days short of Election Day. Things are looking closer than ever, a statement which seems unconscionable just a month ago. For every little bit counting, where do you want to spend your final campaign stop, Senator Goldwater? We'll try... There's some traditionally Republican states like New Hampshire and Maine, which even after everything we've seen are still leaning towards Johnson. Milo and I can head up towards his home state and all across New England. When push comes to shove, these states will deliver. More likely than not, New York is out of your reach in this race, but a victory in New Hampshire is certainly feasible, though possibly not incredibly rewarding. Still, you enjoy unusually receptive crowds. Election night is here, boys. Here we go. All right, we're winning pretty well. Got the South. Not a real surprise. Wouldn't be a real U.S. election if Indiana wasn't the first to declare true. We've won Pennsylvania, we've won Missouri, we've won Ohio. We're winning a bunch of states. We've won New Hampshire. It's going to come down to, I think, Oregon. Oh, I think we were doing well in Oregon, so I think we'll be okay. We've won the election, boys. Would you look at that? We lost the popular vote, but with 275 to 263, we have won the election. Wow, Barry. You actually did it. Goldwater wins in Nailbiter. Warren sinks the Great Society. When the Warren Report came out, it was clear some other force was at play. The great hand of fate flourished his quill and paved the way for you to make a bigger comeback than Truman even. Never before has the White House campaign been so dead on arrival made such a turnaround. Your party is resplendent knowing that they've taken the White House back, and judging by the results, so are many, if not a majority, of Americans. Johnson calls to give you the most bitter confession ever, and you can hear his gritted teeth over the phone. You barely get out a thank you before he hangs up, and his speech on national TV seems even worse, as he grips the podium so hard you think he might shatter it. Your speech to the crowd waiting for you in Phoenix is jubilant, and you can't help but feel pride swelling your chest. Republicans also managed to take down a few extra Senate and House seats. It's not enough to rip away the majority from Democrats, but if you can wrangle up conservatives on both sides of the aisle, maybe you can actually pass something. Be careful, though. While your sweep of the South is monumental for your party, the expectations put on you by the voters who put you in the White House is not something to be taken lightly. Be mindful of storm clouds on the horizon, Barry. America's on a path now, and the countdown to midnight has begun. Well, that was midnight 1964, but I did mention at the start that there is an alternate Goldwater ending. It's actually pretty cool, and I did want to go through that real quick. There's only like 2 questions that are changed, so I don't have to do too much reading. Holy American Empire, Holy American Empire. I can't escape the fucking TNO references no matter what I do. So we're doing Goldwater, going with Barry Miller. Not Barry Miller. William Miller. Bill Miller. So, here we go. We're going to keep going. Prosecutor. And we actually do a little bit of different campaigning here, I believe. I'm going to put a vote. I'm going to put something in Tennessee real quick. Reach back out to Rockefeller. And here we go. So, the elephant in the room. We vote against the Civil Rights Act. Can't legislate morality. Why did you vote against the act? I've supported civil rights my whole life. I've integrated my family business. I've integrated the Arizona Air National Guard. I've integrated the Senate's cafeteria. And I'm a lifelong member of the NAACP. My vote should not and does not outmatch my record. Never before has a presidential candidate completely flipped on an issue like you just have. However, people take a closer look, finding that you actually have the record you say you do. Southerners outraged are supporting the thrown-together candidacy of Senator Thurmond. Okay, well, we now have Arizona and Idaho. But that's literally it. I guess we have Nebraska as well. But everything else almost seems like we've thrown it away, right? Well, just saying that. I think we can... Arkansas has been close to my test games before, so I'll try Arkansas. Gotta keep going. There we go. Here it is. Do Goldwater in Arkansas again. Get the endorsement from Eisenhower. Call Lyndon Johnson a faker, which has a lot of... it's a different impact now that Barry Goldwater's in favor of civil rights. It hits different, I'm not going to lie. Time to Baker. Here we go. Here's a different question. Recently, some of your campaign advisors have begun circulating the idea that with your shifting rhetoric on the civil rights issue, you may be able to cajole a liberal Republican figure into endorsing your campaign, something most of them have refused to do. Will you make this effort, and if so, who will you focus on? Governor Romney has been outspoken in his opposition to me, and everyone knows it. But thus far, just about everyone the criticism has been about my supposed extremism and opposition to civil rights. Well, his arguments don't hold water anymore, do they? Romney is still uneasy about you, but indeed you have satisfied his major quarrels, and he agrees to give you a formal endorsement. Well, he isn't going to campaign for you. His words will undoubtedly help you in Michigan, and possibly even the rest of the Midwest. It's helping a little bit. It's 45 to 446, so it's still not good. But it's better than it was. Got Arkansas. Hodgepodge. Keep on going. American history has changed forever. And there we go. So, still just about to have all of these states. I forget if Illinois. We might be able to get Illinois with a few visits. Although I think Arkansas is more behind. And I think we can win Illinois without visiting it. Here we go. So, say he should resign. We're probably going to flip Illinois without having to do anything, honestly. So we'll go with... We'll try New Jersey. Instead of you visit New Jersey, the old switcheroo, the big switcheroo, you know it. There we go, making them look worse. It's all coming together. We're still behind, but we can swap it around. Gaffes, swindle, treason. I'll send a visit over to Delaware as well. We might be able to get it. Try to title all that. It's all coming together. Look at that. So we'll give a bit of a different answer for this one. So Ronald Reagan wants to do a speech for us, right? Our advisors have some issues with it. What do we plan to do? Okay, I see what you mean. This thing might be a little too controversial to show to a national audience. I'll call Reagan and let him know I'd like him to pull the speech. He won't be happy about it, but it is what it is. Let's air one of our other ads and call it a day, shall we? Your advisor is pleased with your decisions. You call Reagan, letting him know that he won't be going on air. Instead, you air a striking ad against Johnson of corruption on all fronts, and makes a splash, and your advisors are confident you made the right choice. Looks like it has made a splash. Look at that. Lyndon Johnson is a fraud, a phony, a crook, and a murderer. In your heart, you know I'm right. There we go. The Upper South is very, very tight. These states are very close as well. We're going to do one more visit into Arkansas. See if that's going to be enough. It looks like it might be. And then where are we going to visit? We can win California. Put all efforts into that state. Straight to the point. I like it. You spend the last days of your campaign appearing with Dick Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George Murphy, and even John Wayne. The star power, literally, of your campaign is at an all-time high, and it might just be enough to net you a victory in the Golden State. Let's see what happens. Here we go. Alright, so we didn't win Florida, which I think we won last time, but that's okay. We're in a lot of the states we won before, I'm noticing. But here we go. We're doing very well. It's these upper south states that I'm curious about. These are going to be very, very tight. But we won New Jersey. Barry Goldwater won California. Would you look at that? It's going to be tight. But we won Tennessee. Even if we lose the rest of these states, I think we'll be okay. But we won all of them, so it doesn't matter. 300 to 191 to 47. Beautiful. Holy crap, Barry. That was one of the riskiest maneuvers I've ever seen, but you actually pulled it off. Goldwater wins election. Civil rights activists rejoice? When your advisors heard you wanted to reverse course and play up the civil rights issue, they thought you were crazy. Hell, I thought you were crazy too. But you actually did it. With a little help from the Warren Commission, you managed to outflank LBJ on civil rights, of all things, and pull off an amazing upset. Democrats are baffled, at least the northern ones are. They thought this election was a lockup. Southern Democrats are getting especially rowdy in light of what they've accomplished, but that's hardly your problem. Johnson, for his part, has locked himself in his ranch, and between you and me, I'm a bit surprised he hasn't burned it to the ground in a rage yet. You've got a fresh 4 years ahead of you. With your pro-civil rights campaign, you've earned some goodwill with Northern Republicans and are less reliant on a fragile alliance between yourself and the South. Even Nelson Rockefeller has offered to join your administration, something no one would have ever guessed. Hopefully you can do good on the economy, Vietnam, and of course civil rights. Shortly after your victory speech, Robert calls to congratulate you, and even he sounds optimistic. It seems like you're on the right path. It's odd, but everything seems brighter nowadays. Perhaps we finally made it to morning in America. Oh, if it was LBJ in the situation, I'd be too fucking confused to even be mad. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Okay, let's check results by state. Check out the closest states. Arkansas was... Holy shit, Arkansas was close. We won by .04 in Arkansas. That is crazy. Delaware was also close. Like, a 0.1% basically. That's 200 or so votes. Arkansas, that's also about 200. 202, I think. North Carolina, very, very close as well. Tennessee wasn't too close. New Jersey as well. Relatively close. Under a point. Under about half a point. In California, we won by 2 points. Illinois, 3 points. 2.5 points, rather. Washington, we'll say that's 3 points. You get the idea. We won all the closest states. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Midnight 1964. It's a really excellent mod. I do recommend you check it out. I'm very much looking forward to the sequel mod that's dropping. I guess the main mod. I guess it's more the prequel mod, but I'm looking forward to 1968. Whenever that drops, it does set up a full mod. It's going to be interesting. They've dropped some lore, like some teasers on the Reddit for new campaign trail, which I don't know if you can access anymore because Reddit's on fucking fire right now. But it seems pretty interesting from what I can tell. How did DC vote? Actually okay for a Republican, honestly. I did not expect it to be that close. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. But thank you as always for watching, my friends. Like if you liked, dislike if you didn't. If I get, let's say, 5 votes, I might revisit this mod and check out the LBJ side, because there is some interesting stuff you can do with the LBJ side, I'm not going to lie. Including the calls for resignation, if you can maybe figure out what might happen from there. But yeah, like if you liked, dislike if you didn't, leave any comments or feedback or ideas for mods to play. for the new campaign trail. I got a comment recommending I play 48 Red. I'm going to probably play that maybe next. I might do SpongeBob next because I do get the like gold for that. But I'll figure it out soon enough, I think. But do hit the sub button if you want to. I'm going to play Paradox games, so if you're interested in that as well, check that out. But I do games like this on Saturdays, so check that out. Check out my links down in the description box below, including the Twitch, which this was filmed live on. The person I want to talk to, Kev, he's not imaginary. He's just on Twitch. So if you want to talk to me and confuse everyone else, do check that out. Yeah. Thanks so much for watching, my friends. My name has been Mr. Dogboat333. I thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.